There are a variety of horizontal hive configurations. This video details two horizontal hive types I have kept bees in: the Lazutin double deep hive and the long Langstroth hive. Both of the hive types in these photos use extra deep frames. The Layens frames do not fit a standard honey extractor. However, Layens does build an extractor that can handle these frames. The Kenyan top bar hive has neither frames nor foundation. The bees build their honeycomb down from the top bar, thus the name top bar hive. The long Langstroth hive uses standard deep Langstroth frames. They are situated side by side horizontally as opposed to being stacked in boxes vertically. As the long Langstroth hives, or long Langs as they are often called, have grown in popularity, people have begun to put in the features that are important to them. The photo on the left shows a long Lang with a flow hive insert. The one on the right is a long Lang with an added super. My journey with horizontal hives began with these two Lazutin hives. During my second year of beekeeping, I came across a book called Keeping Bees with a Smile. I was intrigued by the concept of a horizontal hive. To me, the management of this type of hive seemed less disruptive to the colony. You weren't breaking open the entire colony on a regular basis to inspect your frames. I also liked the fact that there was no heavy lifting. These hives are really insulated and use extra deep frames, but it was important to me to use standardized frames. I didn't want to build special frames, and I wanted to be able to use my extractor I already have. My solution was to use two deep frames, one on top of the other. I cut the ears off the lower frame and zip tie the two together. When it's time to extract, I simply cut the ties and separate the frames. Extract as usual. After a couple of years of keeping bees in these double deeps, I realized there were additional features I'd like to have in the hives, one being the ability to have a removable bottom board to monitor varroa drops and colony health. I also wanted a better way to add supplemental feed in the winter if needed. And despite the fact that there are no supers to lift, two deep frames full of honey are still pretty heavy to lift out of these hives. Originally, I had been taught that bees needed two deeps to get them through winter, but with more and more keepers successfully using single brood chamber management, I became more interested in the long Lang hives. Unfortunately, all the long Langs I saw were built of the thinner 3/4 inch wood of standard Langstroth hives. I wasn't quite ready to give up my insulated hives just yet. I believe the insulation helps bees overwinter more successfully. They consume less honey stores than uninsulated hives. Two years ago, while viewing a YouTube video produced by Fred Dunn, he talked about building and using a long Lang, but he built this hive out of 2x material. It's not as insulated as the Lazutin hives, but much better than the standard 3/4 inch construction of regular Langstroth hives. The bonus was that Fred worked with a carpenter named Ross Millard, and not only built a well thought out hive, but provides on his website very detailed plans, free of charge, for building these hives. My ever-patient husband was convinced to build 3 of these for me. He didn't even wince too much when I said I wanted to use these plans, but there are a couple of things I'd like to tweak. The photo on the left shows the 12 by 2 construction of the hive, plus the optional added 2 by 4 shim on the bottom. This space below the frames acts similarly to a slatted bottom rack. The photo on the right shows the 1-inch foam board insulation I added in the roof, as well as the inner cover boards. The plug covers a hole in the one board, which, when removed, allows me to place a feeder or fondant packs. I do use a queen excluder in my hive management. As we have extra space below the frames because of the 2 by 4 shim, I had to add a wooden shim to the bottom. I found these frame queen excluders on Amazon. When open, the lid is kept in place by a chain. This slide shows the detailed plans for creating a chain locker to house this chain. As I said before, one feature I wanted in these new hives was the ability to have a removable bottom board. My husband figured a way to build that in using the space that the bottom shim provided. These photos show a door that can be lifted open and where a removable board, in this case a plastic sheet, can be inserted and removed, similar to a coroplast board in a screened bottom board. Of course, this also meant we needed a screen above this space so bees wouldn't have access. The next 3 frames show the construction of that opening. These photos show how I control the entrances and ventilation. The photo on the left shows my entrances. I prefer to use a round opening with a metal disc. This disc allows me to control the size of the opening as well as allow ventilation, but no access in the case of robbing, or to allow access to the workers but not the queen, which can be useful in anchoring a newly caught swarm. The photo on the right shows a smaller version of this disc. There are 2 of these, one on each end, that I can open for ventilation as well as use as a bee escape if bees remain after I've closed the lid. I'd like to show you some of the features of my particular long Langstroth hive. This hive is 5 feet long, made out of 2-by material. There is a 2x4 shim below the frames, and that I use to house a screened bottom board and to give a little bit more space underneath the frames. It has 2 of these disc openings. I primarily just use the one here on the end where the bees are going in and out. The other I could use if I wanted to divide the hive up and have 2 smaller colonies in there, or overwinter two nucleus colonies. Each end has a small disc at the top. It's in the shadow, but that allows me for a little bit of ventilation in the summer. I don't use much in the way of ventilation other than the opening that they come in and out of, but this also allows me to open it up after I've done an inspection in case any bees have been left up in the roof. The front has, really this is the back, has latches to keep the top down, but again, because it's 2x material, it's pretty heavy. And then on this end, I have a small door that is built in, and this is what houses my bottom board that I can pull out. There's a screen above it, and then we just have a slide out tray that goes the length of the hive, and I can pull that out, clean it off, and check my mite drops and just whatever is on your bottom board. And then we'll come back around here and I'll show you the inside of the hive. Unlatch, lift this up. The roof has additional 1-inch foam insulation, and then for the winter I use this Reflectex over my inner covers to add just that much more insulation. The configuration of this hive allows you to store things up in the top. I keep a notepad with a pencil, my hive tool. This is a stopper that fits into a hole, one of the inner covers. I have a hole on it. Currently, you can see I have a feeder here. This hive has been very short on stores, so I've been giving them some syrup. Also, because this is so insulated, I can give them sugar syrup a little bit earlier in the season, but on these 55-degree days, it's no problem. Can remove this. And remove the Reflectex. You can see my Reflectex has a hole in it, and that's what allows this to set over the bottom of it. Take it off. These boards across the top are just 2x4s that we split down. We were using whatever we could find in the garage when we were making this to start with. This opens up, and I can open up as much or as little as I want. So when I'm working on my bees, which are condensed down to 10 frames currently for the winter, I can pull these apart as I need to. I can take off just a couple so I don't have the whole hive exposed. This area over here becomes nice storage area. I can store extra frames in it. I can store divider boards, my feeder, all kinds of things. And you can see that screen bottom board down there. A few dead bees in the corner. I do use a queen excluder with this setup, and it is currently right here. Because I do have that 2x4 shim that is below the frames, my frames have about 2 inches of space, open space beneath them. So this is just a plastic frame queen excluder that we've put a shim on the bottom so the bees can't get through. You have divider boards. This is how I would divide the hive into 2 sections. There's also a divider board here where the colony has ended for the winter. You have a few extra frames in here, and you get to the point where your bees are here and out. So I can start doing an inspection on them. Get my smoker back up. And calm down a little bit. This is my divider board, so I can move it to the side. Not at the moment, I guess. The wood has swollen a little bit. Got my divider board out. The wood has swollen for the winter. Now I can just go in here and pull these frames out one at a time. When I do an inspection, I can check a frame and then move it over to the other side of my divider board. That allows me to not have any bees outside the hive on the ground, so I don't have as much chance of dropping my queen off. As I said, there are 10 frames in here for winter. Put my divider board back in. And I would keep working my way through this way. I'm not appreciating the winter weather yet. Move these girls, just like replacing another inner cover, any typical inner cover. Put that on. And then I'm going to work my way across with my boards. That divider board doesn't allow the bees to come across the top or across the bottom. And I simply just continue working my way across with these boards. There's really not a lot of difference in this hive from winter to summer. They, other than I put the Reflectex on and then at some point can put a fondant packet over this hole or my feeder. I close my entrances down a little bit just so the bees don't have much territory to defend, and then I close it up, and that's pretty much my winter preparation. They're very easy to work with, and you don't end up with a lot of extra equipment that you have to store somewhere else in the way of supers and shims and things like that.